back to another edition of Stop Me If You've Heard This Before. This is a series of instructional videos that I, Mr. Dunn, am doing for my English 2 class. This one, we're talking about formatting quotes. The other day we talked about perfect paragraph format, how to outline a body paragraph of an essay. Specific in that discussion was talking about concrete details, which we said are usually quotes. A couple of reminders. If you would make a couple of notes, there are 4 things that I want you to get out of this. Have that out ready to type up on the computer screen or out to the side of your notes. Pause me as much as you need to ask questions, write down notes, come to class ready to roll with these tomorrow. We'll look at these again tomorrow and practice these a little bit. Here we go. Don't quote me on this. These are guidelines for using quotations in an essay. However, as you know, we've just used them in a quotes log so far. The rules still apply, I would say. We still need to worry about format when we're talking about how to use a quote properly. So what are some important things to consider when using quotes in an essay? Pause me real fast to see what you can come up with. Here are 4 things that I would say you need to worry about when you're talking about using quotes in an essay. And for our purposes, these translate really well, again, to the quotes log. You need to worry about context of the quote itself, citation, and commentary. You might write these with space in between so that you can kind of fill in some definitions or examples as we go through this slideshow here and get you some notes about these 4 important pieces. What do you think is wrong with the following context? Pause me as you need to come up with an answer. Well, if you look, context is the beginning of this, right? So we're talking about the introduction to the quote. Theodore Roosevelt confirms this fact. What's actually wrong is we don't get what authority Theodore Roosevelt has to make a statement like this, okay? So we need to establish his authority somehow. What do I mean by that? Context is who said what, okay? In analytical research essays, in your quotes log, to some extent, it's going to provide authority or credibility for the speaker. If you're doing an essay on writing essays, you want an authoritative, credible speaker to get your quotes from, right? So Bill Clinton becomes former President of the United States, Bill Clinton. We give him credit for who he is and why he's able to speak on a certain topic. Or if you're from the other side of the agenda, of course, you know, George Bush, former President of the United States, George Bush. Context is who said what authority they have to say that. Rules for quotes. These are the essential top 3 rules, and then we'll worry about number 4 as we move along here. This is not something that you have to worry about right now, okay? So I'll put an X through that. Quotes are word for word. You know that. Usually you're cutting and pasting those, especially in your quotes logs now. We need quotes in quotation marks. That's something that I've seen as I looked at quote logs, hasn't always been done. Ellipses can shorten up a quote to skip some non-essential information by bridging the gap between the beginning of a quote and the end of a quote. When we're done with quotes themselves, we need to worry about citations. And citations are these parentheses around the author and the page number. This one is not done correctly because we do not need that comma in there to separate the author and the page number that we found the quote in. That's all we need. We'll talk specifically about online sources as we move forward here, but many of you that have read newspaper articles, that sort of thing, for your quotes log, this is how you should be doing your citations. At least have the author's name right now if you're finding stuff online so that you can find it again later, right? Moving on. Like I said, citations, all they really need, author's last name and page number in parentheses, nothing else. We'll talk about some deviations to this rule as we look at online sources here coming up. Lastly, commentary is what you've done on the other side of the quotes log. In essays, we said that it's explaining the previous quote, whether that's meaning or importance or elaborating on the points or connecting the quote to the thesis of the essay in some way, shape, or form. We're processing what that person in the quote just said. We're doing it for ourselves. I'm getting a phone call, everybody, but I'm going to finish this first, okay? we've got a quote here I want you to look at. Actually, we're going to skip that part because we did a little bit of work with that yesterday. Lastly, one thing I did want to point out, if you mention the author's name in the context of the quote, you don't need to include it in the citation after the quote. What does that mean? If we're getting a quote from Yoko Ono, we don't need to worry about putting her last name here before the 48 in parentheses, right? Because we've already given her credit in the context of the quote, in the setup to the quote. Okay, if you would bring these notes with you tomorrow, however you can. We'll maybe do a little bit of practice with formatting some. Ultimately, this will be important for your quotes log and also for the writing that we'll do with the quotes log moving forward. We'll see you guys tomorrow.